Thanks, Joe. Well, you know, as Canadians face rising mental health issues, especially among our younger populations, the conversation of how churches can better support those with mental health challenges is becoming vital to the well-being of our congregation members and our communities. Joining me now to talk about this important issue is Daniel Whitehead, CEO of Sanctuary Mental Health Ministries. Welcome back to 100 Huntley Street, Daniel.
Oh, thanks, Laura. Lovely to be here.
Yes, well, our team is so thrilled to have you back to give us an update on what you're doing at Sanctuary Mental Health Ministries. And, you know, before we get into some of the youth content that you guys have created in the courses, can we talk a little bit about what people experience who are struggling with mental health issues, even within Christian communities, and what they're experiencing in the church? Is there stigma around their mental health challenges? Are they coming forward to share what their needs are?
Yeah, I think I've been leading Sanctuary for 8.5 years, and I've seen a big shift in people's openness to talking about mental health, which is great. I think one of the challenges that exists often in a church is that there's a kind of unique type of stigma that exists in a church, where people can often conflate what are more complex issues and really reduce them. So someone could say, well, if you have a mental health problem, really you just need to pray more, you need to read your Bible more, and if you do those things, everything will be good. We would say at Sanctuary, often someone's experience is more complex than that. And as a church, it's really important we help people to access the full range of care that they need, because God has made us holistically. God has made us fearfully and wonderfully to not just need spiritual care, but we need physical care, and we need emotional care, and we need community. So I think it can get it can get shrunk to quite a thin subject. And so our role as an organisation is to help people think about it in a slightly more thickened way. How do we thicken our theology of mental health?
So something that we were talking about earlier off camera is that mental health, everybody has mental health. I think that's one of the shifts people need to make. And so talk to me a little bit about what that means.
Yeah, so essentially, you know, if you're anything like me, I was implicitly brought up to believe that, well, you either have a mental illness or you have mental health. And that actually isn't true. The truth is we all have mental health. You may have a mental illness as well, but that's actually separate from mental health, because every human being that's ever lived has mental health. And the question is your mental health flourishing or is it languishing? And life is full of seasons of flourishing and languishing. Our lives are full of that. Jesus lived a life that had flourishing and languishing. And the question is not whether you have mental health, but how is your mental health and what trajectory are you on, and why is that, and what can we do to support you, to help you flourish once more?
So good, and it's so illuminating, and I really love the way you present that and the way your organization presents it. You've mentioned something interesting, that Jesus had a season or seasons where his mental health was languishing.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering if you can talk to us about that biblically, what you're
Yeah.
to.
I mean, if you're anything like me, I grew up in a Christian home. The fact that Jesus is the Son of God is not a big deal to me, actually. I mean, it's a big deal, but I'm okay with that. But the fact that Jesus was fully human, that was more of a revelation for me as I grew up. And I think, you know, Jesus experienced all the things we experience. And when we see Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane, sweating drops of blood with the stress and strain that his body was under, knowing what he faced. When we see Jesus on the cross crying out, my God, why have you forsaken me? This level of vulnerability, this is not someone flourishing. This is someone languishing. And I think our experiences of languishing are validated by Christ, because he himself languished. And languishing isn't something we should be scared of. It's a natural, normal part of the human experience. And what we need in seasons of languishing, as Jesus needed in the garden, was we need our friends around us to see us and be with us.
That's so important. And that's really where also Sanctuary Mental Health Ministry starts to come in, because your goal as an organization is to equip church communities to be able to walk the journey with one another, people within those communities to be friends.
Yes.
To actually be those faithful friends who don't abandon each other when we're languishing and when we're struggling. Many people are intimidated by a mental health crisis or a mental health problem, and we might not know how to support someone. So tell us a little bit more about mental health Sanctuary Mental Health Ministries, the course that you've created for adults and congregations and pastors and lay people.
Yeah, so we started by creating a course called the Sanctuary Course, which really helps a congregation have a conversation that often they don't know how to have. So it seeks to integrate psychology, theology, and a person's story, and creates this safe space and models what it looks like to live into our stories vulnerably. And the beautiful thing about the course, I mean, we launched it approximately nearly 6 years ago, but it's been used by over 300,000 people across 92 countries. It's really grown. So this organisation founded here in Canada has just grown and grown and grown, because our sense was the church wants to help, but very often there's too much fear or stigma to know how to help. So the course really helps build that solid framework, language, that foundation upon which a church can really engage in mental health ministry in a way that's going to help people to flourish.
So profound, and the course is so dynamic. I know it is having a very big impact, and we're very, here at 100 Huntley Street, we're very thrilled about it. We're thrilled about the global impact and the impact in the nation of Canada. You were a pastor for 10 years. You've got a lot of experience in pastoral ministry. And we do see some stats that many people who are struggling with mental health challenges go to their pastors first. Yes. And yet pastors can feel very ill-equipped, and yet they want to help, and that's why they're in the role they're in. Tell me a little bit about your experiences as a pastor in that decade time span with those who are having mental health challenges in your community, and what that was like for you to support those people.
Well, and there is a really interesting stat, which is that 65% of people are more likely to reach out to a spiritual leader before a doctor, and yet only 5% of spiritual leaders would know how to support someone. So there is this disconnect. So my experience of being a pastor in hindsight is that I would say probably as much as 80% of pastoral issues in the church or pastoral challenges were directly relatable to mental health. A lot of these things were practically people who were isolated, people who needed to be seen. And that's why Sanctuary actually believes the church already has a lot of things that can help it support people, like community. Community is a very powerful remedy to the mental health challenge, to isolation. And very often the reason people feel isolated is they don't feel they have the permission to be seen as they are, to be authentic. If the church can find a way to talk about this, then I think we can actually move the needle on this mental health crisis.
Indeed, education makes such a difference, and that humility of saying, God, how can we serve others who are experiencing these issues? We all are affected by mental health, as you said, flourishing or languishing, and different seasons of life, bring either side out. I'm really thrilled that you have created a course focused on youth and young people today. I have two sons, 16 and 13, and it's not lost on me the degree of anxiety and mental health issues and challenges that I see rising up in their generation, whether it's impacting them sometimes or their friends. And of course, we see even more serious issues like mental health challenges leading to suicidal ideation in those younger populations. There are a lot of stats. There's a lot of information you're carrying that would be really helpful for our parents and grandparents watching, so they understand what's at stake and what's going on. Tell us about the landscape of young people today as they're experiencing mental health challenges.
Yeah, well, in the last few years, the data has really started emerging because they've been tracking numbers over the last sort of 15 years. We know that between 2010 and 2019, the rates of depression and anxiety among young people grew by 50%. We know that during the pandemic, rates of anxiety and depression doubled. So we're seeing the data basically in the early 2010 to 2012, there seems to be this shift in society where young people are increasingly feeling more anxious and depressed, and suicide and suicidal ideation has also dramatically increased since 2012. When you see the data, to be quite honest, as a parent, it's kind of terrifying.
Yeah, it is.
And I think in that moment you have to take a breath and remember that Jesus is Lord, that we're not on our own in this. But I also think we have a responsibility to really do something about this, because I feel as a person of faith, this can't happen on my watch. We've got to do something, and that's really why we created the youth series.
Indeed, we have to do something. And so this youth series is focused on a specific age group. And so tell us about the age group and some of the topics that you're covering and diving into for the youth series.
Yeah, so it's aimed at 11 to 15-year-olds, and that's in part because 50% of mental health challenges that emerge in a person's life begin before the age of 14. So we made the decision, let's get in early, let's give young people a framework, a theology of mental health. Young people are talking about mental health, but often they're talking about it in a purely secular context. So basically that means, well, we talk about mental health with doctors and medical professionals, which is good, we need to do that, but we don't talk about it in the context of our faith and in the church. And I think a danger happens when young people are forced to do that, because essentially they say, this is something God doesn't care about. This is something that is irrelevant to my faith. And actually the opposite is very much true. Obviously God cares deeply about this. So creating this resource is really important for us. Also knowing that young people, 61% of young people would say that adults in their lives don't know how much they're struggling in their mental health. So again, there's this disconnect between adults and young people. So what we want to do is, with these two resources, is bridge that generational gap and get young people the support that they need.
So the adults can be taking the adult course and start to understand, as well as even the youth course, because the reality is they need to understand what the young people are going through. And youth leaders, youth pastors, parents, we could just be really taking, stepping into that course and really taking it in so that we're equipped. One thing that you'd said to me earlier today on our own when we were chatting in our green room was that many young people are more likely to go to a peer for support.
Yes, yeah.
That's
so 70% of young people would say they're more likely to talk to a friend about what's going on for them. And yet we also know that only a third of young people feel equipped to know how to support themselves or a friend. So they're kind of trapped in that sense. And really, the goal is we've got to get young people talking to trusted adults, to people that can actually get them the support that they need. So again, building that shared framework, building that shared language that allows intergenerational conversations is really important to help young people get support that they need.
And what I hear from you a lot is, the power of relationship. So the power of relationship with God, yes, but the power of relationship with each other. A young person having a trusted adult, friends who understand what they're journeying through, and all of us going together, arm in arm, hand in hand, working through mental health challenges together as a community.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, this is the way God has made us. God is a relationship, Father, Son, and Spirit. We're made in God's image. We as human beings are made here for relational purposes. The Bible tells us we are made for interdependence, not independence. Yeah. We are not made to be alone. We are made for each other. And I think this is one of the biggest challenges our culture faces at the moment. We've never been more connected digitally, but we've never been more isolated. The World Health Organization says we're on the precipice of a global epidemic of loneliness. Something isn't right. And I actually think the church is called for such a time as this to model and demonstrate and proclaim a different way to be, which is a way to be in community and to care and love for one another.
Daniel, such powerful words. And for someone watching right now, we do have young people that tune into 100 Huntley Street, and maybe they are desiring that community. They are desiring connection, and they need to know they're not alone. In this moment, what would you say to them?
I would say to them in this moment, Sanctuary's created so many resources that we give away, and if having that conversation or opening up that door to get the help you need seems too difficult, maybe just download the youth series, gather a group of people, talk to your youth pastor, say, could we run this? If you go to a faith school, talk to your teacher, can we run this? And that will help you open up the conversations that will allow you to have the conversations you need to have.
It's so good. And, I'm excited that people can take action. So the call would be to adults watching, grandparents, children, younger people, teenagers, go forward to your church. Tell them about this resource.
Yes.
And that we want to get this going in our community.
Yeah, we need to. It's time. It's time to talk about this. It's time to do this. So there's nothing holding you back. It's now there. You can go use it.
I love it. Well, we are called for such a time as this, Daniel, to help young people experience flourishing mental health and move away from the challenges that they are having right now, as well as the adults in our life that we love who are experiencing these challenges. Daniel, I'm hoping you'll stay with us, and in the end of the program, you'll come on and you'll pray for young people and families across Canada who are experiencing mental health issues.
I'd love to.
Okay, that'd be great. Thank you so much for this information, for being with us right now. If you are experiencing a mental health challenge in this moment, please call our prayer partners. They are there for you 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Well, we have so much inspiration for you to come. Stay with us right now.